Gentlemen, Mike and Alex here, Friday the 10th of December 2021 with the Victorian Police Licensing Regulation Division's compliance requirement presentation for surveillance vehicles for CPP 30619 Certificate 3 in Investigative Services. I'd like to welcome our subject matter expert, Alex, who's going to take us through his presentation in relation to surveillance vehicles and tell us a little bit about contemporary surveillance vehicles. Welcome along, Alex.
Good morning. How's it going? Yeah, so we're going to be talking about how to organise and operate a surveillance vehicle, which has changed a lot since I first started in 2008, where you would bring along an actual physical map rather than your phone and your GPS, and you'd bring along just a notepad and a pen and a camera with a tape in it and hope they showed up. But things are obviously a lot different and a lot more modern now, and I should hope that things are different and more modern now, or else you're probably not doing a very good job. We're going to be talking about how to organize and operate a surveillance vehicle. That doesn't mean I'm going to be teaching anyone here how to drive today. It just means I'm going to be teaching you how to do it within the context of what we do. So I'm going to start to share my screen now. And you seeing that?
Yep. Do you want me to hit it?
Yep.
Can you see it? Yep. Rightio.
Okay. We're going to start moving along with it. Okay. Oh, this thing's a pain in the ass.
You're not allowed to swear on live streams. There's people watching.
From beginning. Okay.
You should be able to just use your right arrow and left arrow.
That's it. I got it.
Okay.
Organize and operate surveillance vehicles. So again, we're not talking about operate surveillance vehicles in terms of how to drive. I'm not here to teach you how to do that today. We're just talking about how to use the vehicle in the context of what we do as far as surveillance goes, which I've been doing now since 2008. So I always joke around, but it's not really a joke at the same time. I practically live in my vehicle, and there's a good surveillance vehicle right there. It doesn't stand out at all.
No,
so,
not that.
Yeah. We're going to talk about vehicle choice issues. And a lot of people will message me and ask me, hey, do you think this is a good car for me to get for my first surveillance vehicle? And it'll be a bright yellow, or green thing like this. I don't even know if that thing can go 100 k's an hour. I'm not sure. But some common sense needs to be applied to this sort of thing. You can't be going out and using certain types of vehicles with certain types of things about them that are going to make them stand out. So vehicle choice issues. Pick neutral and common colors. If you can see in the little picture just there, you've got hundreds of cars in a one photo, and you'd certainly be able to see if there was a bright yellow or bright pink colored car that came out. And by the way, if your subject has something like this, a bright pink or a bright yellow car, you're going to be really happy that they do, because it's going to be easy to spot them in a crowd. Conversely, if you've got something like that, it's going to be easy for them to spot you in a crowd. So you really want them to have everything that you don't want. Avoid identifying features. This can be things like roof racks or special types of things on the car that aren't stock per se and aren't usual, like a giant love heart roped to the roof. Not a good look, not something we want really on our car.
So I can't have an I Spy number plate?
No. Oh. Well, not if you want to work.
Oh, okay.
Avoid stickers / decals. So I'm part of a lot of hobbies and interests outside of private investigations. And I would love to have a sticker about it on the back of my car, but I just can't do it. So I do jiu-jitsu. I'd love to have my club's emblem on the back window of my car like everyone else does at the club. Can't do it because it's something that someone's going to notice and see twice in two different neighborhoods, and it's going to not help me much at all sort of blend in with the crowd. Avoid large or multiple aerials. There's probably some country people that might end up watching or listening this, and this is the sort of thing that they've got on their car. It stands out. So you really want to avoid that as well. Avoid unusual or exotic wheels. So it might be tempting to throw on some 24s on your Corolla. But again, it's not something that we want as far as blending in with the crowd. Avoid customized plates. This is going to hurt some feelings because a lot of people get really into their customized plates and they want, their name and all kinds of funny things on their number plates. And again, this is something, if your subject or claimant or target you're following has a customized plate, it's just like, sometimes they've got their name and birth date on their plate and it's just the best thing in the world for identifying them. But again, it's the worst thing in the world for identifying you. So you want to avoid that. If you've got customized plates, I'd probably recommend changing them because it becomes real obvious real fast they're being followed. Avoid unusual patterns / vinyl wraps. And you can see the flames on the front of the car there. Pretty cool. Just not cool for us with our job and what we do. This is a big one. Do not impersonate police / emergency services in any way. There are some people thinking, damn it. And there are some people thinking, obviously. It happens. And we know people that have tried it and it hasn't ended well for them. If someone comes up to your vehicle and approaches you and asks you, what are you doing in my neighborhood? Never, ever say that you're a police officer. Because when they ring the real police and the real police show up, you're going to get done for impersonating a police officer, and that's a loss of license and possibly more. Local climate considerations. Full disclosure, I've been living in Queensland most of my life, so a lot of what I'm going to say has more to do with hot climates rather than cold climates, but we have a few things for both in here. So as you can see, Australia, most of Australia is hot. Looks like Tasmania there missed out on some of it. Okay, hot conditions. Take advantage of the vehicle's air conditioning. When I started this job, operatives were expected to sit in their car and die for the job with their car off and everything off, and they just sit there like American Sniper and piss themselves and point the camera all day. That's not the reality. You've got air conditioning, use it. If you don't use it, you run the risk of things like heat stroke and dehydration and just overheating in general, and you're not going to be able to perform very well if you get hit with that heat stroke, trust me. Make use of shade. It seems obvious, but you'll see that you get to sit in a street somewhere and there'll be a whole bunch of open space with nothing, and then there'll be that one tree. It's probably a good idea to park yourself in front of that one tree, providing the sun's hitting it at the right angle so you actually get the benefit of the shade and it's not on the other side of it. But it makes a huge difference to actually park underneath the tree under that shade. You'd be surprised. Window tinting's a big one. Psychologically, if you're out on a job and you're sitting in the driver's seat and you've got no window tinting, the day is a lot more stressful. If you've got that window tinting, it just psychologically, you can just sit there and relax. And yeah, someone might approach your car and peer in and notice that there's someone sitting there, but it is a hell of a lot more comfortable knowing that most of the time no one can see you, and it can make a 16-hour day feel a lot faster knowing that, you're pretty reasonably invisible. There's legal issues with window tinting and the limits on how high you can go. I'm hearing stories of cars coming out stock with illegal window tinting nowadays. So it's not something that you want to push. And if you do get approached by the police and you decide to be a smartass, it might be something that they will pretty quickly bring up as well. So we want to just do what's legal and try to treat the police with some respect if you want to do that. Staying hydrated. If you've ever run out of water on a job, it's pretty much an emergency situation, especially on a hot day. You want to make sure that you bring more than what you think you need. And a lot of people say, well, I don't want to drink too much water because I don't want to have to go to the toilet too often. Well, now you're dehydrated and now you're screwed. You have to keep those water levels up at all times. You'll perform a lot better. You'll feel a lot better. Yeah, you've got to go to the toilet. Big deal. It's just part of it. Note, do not try to sit in a hot car for extended periods of time. Risks include heat stroke, loss of consciousness, and death. I've had serious heat stroke once. I got cocky. It was a cold day, so I thought I'll just turn the car completely off, and the sun was hitting my car directly. I've got a black car. But I just kept having the mantra to myself, don't worry about it. It's a pretty cold day. It's not going to affect me. And within, I think, 10 minutes, my car was heated up as if it was a summer day, and I had full-blown heat stroke, headaches. I got out of the car. I couldn't cool down. I was pouring water on myself. There was nothing I could do about it. You could really get in an ice cold shower with heat stroke, and it wouldn't make a difference. Once you've got it, you've got it, and you've got it for a while. It's a big problem. You'll also notice if you're out on surveillance on a hot day at a construction site, you'll see men start dropping like flies from the heat stroke. There should be limits on how hot it can be and how hard you can work. But if you get it, you get it, and there's no getting rid of it, and it will pretty much ruin the job. So I would definitely recommend taking these precautions. Use your air conditioning, make use of shade, window tinting, stay hydrated. Anything you can do. You can get in-car fans that you can run off the cigarette lighters. Just these things, they add up, and they're going to help stop you from getting into a really bad situation. Okay, some considerations for the cold. And again, I'm not the best authority on this, living in Queensland most of my life. I have had some pretty cold days, but not so much ice and snow in Queensland. But we're going to talk about this. Take advantage of vehicle heating. So just like the air conditioning, on a cold day, you could turn your car completely off and just start freezing. And some clients might expect you to sit in your car and freeze to death. I don't. You're going to want to take advantage of that if you've got it, and you should have it. I wouldn't live in somewhere like Tasmania, have my heater break down, and then go, nah, bugger it, and just keep going. I would get that fixed. Bring spare warm/waterproof clothing. Even though you're sitting in your car with your heater, there are occasions where you're going to be getting out of your car. And if anything, my last holiday to Tasmania, I realized quickly that I get out of that car without the appropriate clothing, and I'm lasting 5 minutes. My fingers freeze off. It's not a good thing. So again, like the water, you want to bring more than what you think you need. Tire chains. This is something that, again, I'm not a huge expert on. I've never seen this in Queensland. I've never had to use this myself. But if you live in that cold, icy climate, this is something that you're going to want to keep on you. Helps with traction and helps get you through some areas that you might not otherwise be able to get through. Drive to the conditions. One quote that I heard when I was down in a course in Tasmania that's always stuck with me is the speed limit is just that. It's a limit. A lot of people take it as this is the minimum speed that I have to go. So a sign will come, you go past a sign that says 100 kilometers an hour. And a lot of people think that, oh, it says 100, I have to drive at least 100. No, 100 is the maximum that you have to drive, not the minimum that you have to drive. So a lot of people feel that pressure of someone tailgating them to actually speed up, and, problems arise from driving too fast, especially in these slippery conditions. And I know that there's going to be, you might drop down to 80 and there's going to be trucks, up your butt, and they're trying to get to where they're going and things like that. But if you feel unsafe, just pull over, let them pass, and go on about your day safely.
With the cold conditions, when you're inside a vehicle for a long time, the classic example I always give to people in my classes is Richard Carlton, the reporter on the television Sunday night program. I can't remember the name of it, but he was on it for years. And the two guys were trapped down the mine at Beaconsfield in Tasmania. And this was a big thing. They'd been trapped down there for 10, 12 days or whatever. And the rescue teams had just cleared it all, and they were about to come out. Now, there's a long wait. These things don't happen instantly, but the TV all want to be there to see the guys coming out and get the footage of that moment where they come out. So Richard Carlton stayed in his vehicle in a shirt the whole night before they came out. Now, it was 3 degrees. So he's in there in a shirt. He's got nothing else on. He hasn't got a blanket. He hasn't got a cardigan. He hasn't got a coat. He hasn't got anything. And what happens is that a cold comes through the windscreen. It hits you straight on the chest where you're sitting. And you just get colder. And the closer it gets to morning, you get colder and colder and colder. Now, he'd already had a heart operation, Richard Carlton. And so around about 9 o'clock in the morning, the two guys come out, and he rushes out to the press conference with the cameras and his microphone, and he's asking questions, and he drops dead with a heart attack right there, bang, gone completely. And it was totally a result of the cold of that night. Now, I know that because I've done it. I haven't had a heart attack and died, but no one else knew that. They just thought he had a heart attack because he had a condition, and they never considered the workplace health and safety aspect of what he just voluntarily done to get the story. Where Alex has got the photograph of the car there with help written on it, I have slept in a car in my flannelette pajamas, in my double insulated sleeping bag, and prepared to go the next morning at 4:30 a.m. to where I had to go, and it snowed overnight. Now, snow was forecast, but it actually was more than had actually happened. But I was asleep, and you don't hear snow. It doesn't make a noise. It's not like on TV where you hear. It's not like that. It just happens. Rain, you can hear that thundering down on your car, but snow, you don't know. So you wake up, and the windscreens are all frosted, and you can't see out. You go to open the door, and it's frozen. It ain't gonna open. Now, I had two choices. I could urinate on the door handle and hope that that would open it. That wasn't my first choice. Or my thermos, where I had a very valuable cup of coffee in it, I could pour that on the door and do that. So I waited a little bit longer. I poured my thermos on the door, and it finally opened. Otherwise, I would have been trapped in there for another hour and a half before the sun came up. So I was able to get out and walk through. It wasn't a lot of snow. It was only 2 inches, but I was able to walk through that to my observation position. With car chains, you only need one chain. You have that on your spare tyre. You don't need 4. So if you're going somewhere and you know it's going to be quite heavy snow and there's no snow ploughs, you have that one chain and you drive along on the shoulder of the road. That's how you get your grip on the gravel shoulder. You don't drive along on the bitumen yet, because the grip's going to come from the gravel shoulder. So you can go and do courses, driving courses in that sort of thing, and look at it. I was at the same presentation Alex saw about the 100 kilometres an hour sign. And what we were told by the people that go and pick up the dead bodies and the injured people that gave that presentation was that when Asian drivers come to Tasmania, they think when they see a 100 kilometre speed sign, that's what you have to drive. And that's what gets them into trouble, because they're trying to comply with the law, but they don't understand that they can drive at 90 or 80 if it's pouring with rain or something like that. So it's really weird. The other thing with cold weather is you will go from centre of Melbourne to Ballarat in the middle of winter, and when you arrive in Ballarat at 5 a.m. to start your surveillance, every other vehicle in the street's going to look like Alex's vehicle there because of the frost, and you're going to be the only clear vehicle in the street. So that's going to alert people to your presence quite well too. So keep that in mind. That's not a workplace health and safety issue. That's a visibility issue.
Alrighty. So moving on with this one, just one last point is always be ready with a plan B, such as roadside assist or emergency services in extreme cases. Don't be a hero. If you're stuck, it's probably a better idea to let someone help you out than just sit there and try to tough it out, because problems can arise pretty quickly. Alrighty, on to the next thing. Car rentals. This is certainly going to be part of this presentation and part of this talk, just because it's quite common, more common than what a lot of people might think. But so we've got our car rental place there. These are our reasons to rent. Distance, flew first. So there are places in Queensland that are further away for me to get to than Victoria is from Queensland. So I might have to fly there, and it's really quite common. I might even have to fly to another state where I'm licensed, because it's just you're going to weigh it up with your client, but it might actually be cheaper to fly there, which will take an hour instead of a 8-hour drive, rent a car. And these things, they're going to weigh up the costs and see what would be better. And it's certainly better time-wise to fly somewhere and rent a car most of the time, and budget-wise as well, because you're charging by the kilometre and by the hour to get down there also. So the first reason would be distance. Maybe you flew first. You want to get down there to the airport, rent a car and be on your way. Some clients will give you the kilometres that you drive in that car. Some clients consider the kilometres that you drive wear and tear on your own personal vehicle. So if you're charging and weighing this up, that's something to consider. So if you're renting a car quite often, you won't be able to charge for those kilometers like you normally would in your own car. Compromise. So another less fancy word for compromise is being burned. So if you've been burned, there's two types of burns you can get. You can burn your face, which means that you've been compromised and they've seen you, they've looked at you, they know who you are, possibly know what you do, or maybe they've seen you too often. And then there's the second kind of compromise, which means you've been compromised, your vehicle has been compromised. Okay, so that means that you've just been in their face or up their butt too much, and they're starting to crack onto who this got, who this vehicle is, but not necessarily your face. And then obviously there's the worst kind of being compromised, which is your face and your vehicle are just gone. This probably means they're going to have to pick up someone else or stop the surveillance completely. But if your vehicle's only been burned, you can go and swap it for your wife's or your girlfriend's or your husband's or your boyfriend's, or you can go out and rent another vehicle. Make your client aware that this is something that you're considering doing, so that you can have them take over the costs. Hopefully, if they're not willing to pay for it, it's just not going to get done in my book. Breakdown of a previous vehicle. These things happen. You get flat tires, you get all kinds of problems. The morning of surveillance, you might have to go out and rent a car that day. Again, this is something that you go and tell the client first. You don't just put a surprise on the bill at the end of the job just because your car broke down. That's partly your problem. So it's something that you have to discuss with them. But yeah, if your car breaks down, you're going to have to get a new one or get someone else to do the job entirely. So suitability, environmental and geographical. If you've got a Hyundai Getz, that's great for suburban and city stuff. But if you have to go out into the bush, that's not so great. And you might want to consider changing up to something more suitable to that location. Same thing in the city. You don't want to have your pig hunting, thing with the deer skull on the front of it when you're in the middle of Melbourne CBD. That's going to stand out as well. So if your car doesn't seem suitable for the environment that you're about to go into, it might be a good idea to change that up, possibly rent a different car. The rental is also a vehicle of interest. This happened to me once, that a subject who wasn't supposed to be able to drive went and rented a car. He drove around in it all week. We then took that car and rented it after he used it to take photographs of what the interior of the car was like, whether it was an automatic or a manual, sort of how he'd be positioned, how he'd be using it, and took photographs and footage of all that stuff so that we could exactly say to the client, this is what he was doing and this is how he was doing it. It's a little bit rare, and there might be other reasons that a vehicle might be a vehicle of interest. It could be a dodgy car rental place, and they're renting cars that are unsafe to people, and you might do it that way. I haven't done one like that myself, but it would be interesting. Storage space. So you might be going away for a week and you need to bring quite a few things, and your little Hyundai Getz isn't going to cut it as far as how many things you need to bring. And when we go over the equipment checklists later on, you'll see just how many things can be brought onto one job, even if it's a short job. So storage space is definitely an issue with a lot of these jobs. I've got a dual cab ute. I'll almost fill up the back of that thing with stuff that I need to take on a job that's going to take longer than a couple of days. Pre-operational checks. This is very important. So this is something that no one told me to do, that I started doing by myself because I'm forgetful. So I've got a checklist that I have on my phone that I'll fill out every single time I'm about to go out, because there's nothing worse than getting all the way out there, realizing you've forgotten your camera, which you needed. This also relates to things regarding just the vehicle in general as well, so maintenance and so on. So pre-operational checks for the vehicle would include oil and water, checking that, tires, spare tire. So I would always recommend having a spare tire everywhere you go. You never know what's going to happen. Since 2008, I've had 2 flat tires, which is a pretty good record, but it still happened, and I still was happy that I had a spare tire on me. Noise check. My car rumbles. There's no way around it. I've got a big car, and when you open the window, you're like, oh Jesus, that's what people hear when I'm parked right out the front of their house. So I'm aware of that, so I don't park right out the front of the house. There's also before I got it serviced last time, a little bit of chattering, and it turned out to be a loose battery bay, which cost me nothing to fix. I thought it could have been something very expensive, but it was not. But it made a lot of extra noise that I didn't want when I was rolling around. And, so you want to get outside your car, not just close all the doors and all the windows and go turn the engine on and go, yeah, that's nothing. But then when you get out of the car, you realize there's a chattering or a rumbling that you weren't aware of. So that's going to affect sort of how you do things, how far away you might have to park from a place of interest or person of interest. Cleaning inside and out, and you'll notice that I've written maybe. Okay, so inside, yes, always have the inside of your car as clean as you can. I can't tell you how many times I've gone out and done a big job, gotten home, and within a couple of days I've been really sick because it can get a bit unsanitary in there, especially if you're living in your car 16 hours a day, you're eating, going to the toilet. You want to keep that inside space as clean as you can with antibacterial sprays and wipes and whatever you can throw at it. Outside, if I am going out to a rural area, I don't want to be visiting the car wash the day before and getting my car completely shiny and clean and nice, because that's going to stand out where everyone else's car is covered in mud and dirt, and I don't think they've ever seen the inside of a car wash. It's not going to be a good look. At the same time, having red dirt all up the side of your car, looking like you've been driving around in the Northern Territory, but you're in the middle of Melbourne CBD, is a strange look also. So people are going to notice that. So whether or not I clean the outside of my car depends on where I'm going next. Maintenance such as service, this goes without saying, even in general, but you want to keep up to date with that sort of thing. The last thing you want is to hold off on a service that you should have done, and then something goes wrong that you were warned about last service, and you just want to keep up to date with that stuff. Your vehicle is your office. It's more than an office, really, because offices don't move. So you've got all these moving parts, and you want to keep that sort of in check. Air conditioning and heating. My air conditioning once broke down, and I said that it turned out to be a compressor, which was going to cost me $3,000. And I said, no, bugger it. I'm just going to go without air conditioning. Don't do that. It's horrible. And my car was so stinky because I was always sweating in it. I had one really tanned arm because I was always hanging my arm out the window. I had to buy little fans and things like that. Ended up getting the air compressor fixed for the $3,000 and then sold the whole car for $3,000 a little bit later. It was a huge nightmare. But if you've got an air conditioning problem, or a heating problem for that matter, if you live in a cold area, heating in Queensland isn't going to be that big of a deal. I could just throw on a jumper in the coldest winter day. But yeah, get that fixed as soon as you can, and get your air conditioning regassed. You'll be surprised what a big difference that can make. Brakes, obviously, you don't want to have faulty brakes and get out onto a job and rear end the person that you were following. It's not a good look. Fuel, and you'll notice I have that in capitals. I don't care if you're going out on a 7-day job or if you're going out on a 5-minute spot check. You fill your car up to the top every single time. There's a few reasons for this. Spot checks can turn into a 16-hour day. You might go for a spot check. You might find the person, call the client. The client says, oh, great, can you stay there? And all of a sudden you're sitting there. You were on the fuel light. You were planning on going to the servo in a minute, but now you can't leave. Well, you're screwed. Okay. The other reason is compromise. If I get caught and the person decides they want to chase me, my best self-defense is having more fuel than they do. I'm going to drive away. As a matter of fact, I'm going to drive away at the speed limit, get on the highway, and let this guy chase me until he realizes, shit, I only had half a tank of gas, and I'm just going to head towards home. And when he gives up, I'm just going to be able to relax and go have something to eat. And I'm relaxed too. Okay. But if I'm sitting there on the fuel light and someone starts chasing me and I jump on the highway, it's not going to end well for me. Okay. So you want to always have more fuel than the person that you're going after. The other thing is, if they pull into a service station, it's a lot better for you to just sort of pull into the car park, but not have to use the fuel bowser next to them in a hurry. You'd rather be sitting there getting footage rather than, doing that. Obviously, follows can get very lengthy. I've had a follow that was from Brisbane down to the New South Wales Victorian border, which obviously took days with many stops and things like that. So any chance that I had to get fuel, I certainly took. All your lights. I've been pulled over a few times and they've said, hey, your brake lights aren't working or something like that. It's the last thing I wanted when I'm out trying to follow someone and chase someone around, that people are actually beeping at me, telling me my lights don't work. Just check them front and back. Get out of your car, put them on, walk around the car, have a look, have someone sit in the driver's seat and tap that brake light, make sure everything's is good to go. Obviously, you don't need to do this every single day, but you know, every couple of jobs, it is good to get out and have a look. Hazard lights, all that sort of thing. Up-to-date roadside assist. So you might let that expire and just go bugger it, and that'll be the day your car battery doesn't work and your car won't turn on because you had the windscreen wipers going like crazy, and now you're sitting in the rain and you've got to sort all that out. And that, in my experience, and by the way, everything that I'm telling you here today is because of a mistake that I've made. So in my experience, that can take 4 to 6 hours to sort out, and you were supposed to be at work by now, and now you're sitting there trying to negotiate with roadside assist. We're going to talk about counter surveillance. Do I get caught doing my job? Yes, it happens. Okay. I've done thousands and thousands of jobs. I'd be completely lying if I said that I've never been caught or noticed. And I'll tell you, it's not easy to follow someone. If you haven't done this before, if you haven't done this job before, just as next time you're going home from work, just pick someone on the road, anyone, and say, I'm just going to follow them, okay, for 10 minutes. You would be shocked at how difficult it really is. And people do notice if you're following them. You have to try to follow them in a way that you won't be too noticed, but at the same time, you won't lose them. And that's a really difficult balance to keep, but we're going to try and do our best. Okay, so counter surveillance, watch out for sudden stopping. They pull over onto the side of the road suddenly, okay? This can be for a number of reasons, so don't be too paranoid. It might not be that they know they're being followed. They might be having to stop to make a phone call, check their GPS, who knows what. I've had it happen more times than not when they suddenly stop, that they were just doing something else and not knowing that I was following them. Don't stop with them, behind them. Really dodgy, okay? They stop suddenly, you go whoosh and keep going past them, and then you find somewhere down the road to pull over, and hopefully they don't do an aggressive U-turn and go back the other way, because then, you know, it's pretty much over and you're going to have to go into recovery mode. But yeah, sudden stopping is something that can happen and does happen, and you want to make sure that you don't get up their butt and stop right behind them and go, come on, mate, keep going. It's not going to work. Sudden turning, again, they could be going down a main road and chuck a Yui really quick. And it's a big problem for surveillance because they do that random U-turn and they see you behind them and you do the random U-turn again immediately. It can raise suspicion if they're not suspicious already. So it might be something that you want to give them a little bit of space on. But again, it doesn't necessarily mean that they know. Just means that that's what they're doing, and usually, but if they know, then maybe they'll do it 2 or 3 times, and then you've got to go, okay, I'm going to get out of here. I have had this happen quite a bit. Driving too fast, again, some people just drive fast. Some people break the speed limit all the time. It doesn't necessarily mean that they know. However, it can be an indication. You don't get to drive fast with them. If they're going 120 in an 80 zone, you don't get to go 120 to try to keep up with them. If they're going too fast, you're going to have to lose them. But you'll be able to make notes on what speed they were going, and you'll be able to put that all in there and be able to work that out with the client. You don't have to break the law. You don't have to break the road rules just to get a result, okay? Because you can rack up points and lose your license pretty quick. Trust me on that one too. Driving too slow. This for me is a bigger pain than driving too fast, and walking too slow for that matter. I'm expecting most people on the Gold Coast where I live to be driving too fast, but every now and then you'll get someone get on the highway and start doing 60, and there's nothing you can do. What are you going to do? Sit behind them and do 50? They're going to notice that really quick because they're the only other one doing it. So driving too slow is also one thing to watch out for counter surveillance, because they might be waiting for you to pass. If they are driving ridiculously slow and you have to drive ridiculously slow to try to stay behind them, it'd probably be a good thought to just whoosh past them and try to recover them later, or let the client know, because the job might be burnt at that point. Running red lights, again, this is something that just because they do doesn't mean you get to do it. It's definitely a sign of counter surveillance, because they're trying to outrun you, and they're probably pretty confident that you won't go through the red light as well. Or if you do go through the red light as well, which is illegal, by the way, then it's just going to confirm what they were thinking. Mirror awareness. You can sort of get an idea when you're behind someone if they're looking back into their rearview mirror and checking to see who's around and things like this. This doesn't mean that they're necessarily looking for you. They could be just generally paranoid, or they could be generally good with their mirrors. But sort of have a look at where their eyes are darting around, and if it's directly at you, that's going to be an issue. Sudden lane changes. I hate it when people do this, but they'll 4 lanes and they'll go lane 1, lane 2, lane 3, lane 4, back to lane 2, back to lane 1, and it looks a little bit strange if you're sitting there behind them doing all the exact same things as they are. So what I would recommend is, if they're doing a lot of lane changes, if possible, try to stay in the same lane for at least a little while. Don't change lanes immediately when they do, unless it's coming up to a turn or an exit that they're likely to take, then maybe. But if they see you playing that game of chess behind them, trying to get in front of everybody, doing exactly all the same moves as them, you might want to consider just easing off a little bit. Eye contact attempts, so they're pulling up right next to you, they're looking straight at you. I mean, that's pretty obvious. It's not a good sign. Doing laps of a roundabout / block. This is a big one. So you'll take off after them. You'll be going nice and easy. Everything's going great. And they turn right, and then they turn right, and then they turn right, and it's just, oh crap, what's going on here? Some people do this as a habit because they have been followed before. They've caught the guy before, so now every time they leave the house, they do 2 laps of the block or 2 laps of the local nearby roundabout to make sure no one's following them. Don't follow someone round a roundabout more than once, okay? If they start doing that, you keep going, whoosh past, back off, let the client know, maybe try to recover later if you feel comfortable doing that. But it's part of counter surveillance and something some people might do, and it's really quite common. Looks of panic. So some people, it depends on who the person is. Some people will realize they're following and freak out. Some people will realize they're being followed and laugh. Some people will get angry. These are things that you want to look out for. But if you can see that you're seeing signs of panic, again, it doesn't necessarily mean you've been burned. It could just mean that they're driving in the middle of the city and they are not used to that. But it is something that you want to keep an eye out for. Reckless behavior. So, I've seen everything from people driving on the wrong side of the road with a child in the back seat. You want to not encourage that. You want to not cause that. You want to not be a part of that, and trying to follow them into the, onto the footpath. Subject following agent. This is one that I've had a couple of experiences with. I think my record of being chased is 60 kilometers before the guy gave up. I found out later that his car broke down after that, so that was pretty funny. But sometimes when people get caught and they decide they want to get angry about it, they're going to try to follow you. This comes back to the fuel concept. So my method of self-defense there is, I've got more fuel than you, buddy. I'm just going to drive away at the speed limit and just keep going for as long as I can.
Alex, for those people who are watching the replay as part of our course, up above me now, at 39 minutes into this video, is an anti-surveillance investigation video link. If you are being followed by someone aggressively, what you do and how you can save yourself in that kind of circumstance. Doesn't happen frequently, but it can happen. And so take advantage of watching that video once this one has finished.
Mm-hmm. You might also consider, as that's happening, calling the police, or at least finding out where your local police beat is, so that you can sort of pull up there and get yourself out of the car safely. But it's really important that you stay calm and don't start panicking, because you're going to start making stupid decisions, pulling into dead-end streets. And just try to find somewhere where you can just keep going and figure it out. And eventually they'll give up, or you'll be able to do a tactical exit of the highway and get away, or whatever you've got to do. It's a little bit more complicated in rural and country areas, or areas that you don't know very well. Keep an eye on your GPS. Make sure you don't pull into any dead-end streets, because they'll cut you off there. But if that's the case, I would make calling the police more of a priority. Pre-operational checklists, so things that you want to bring along on surveillance with you. I'm just going to give you a real-world example of some of the things that I bring. A lot of people think, oh, if I start this job, I'm going to be having to fork out thousands and thousands of dollars for all these kinds of equipment. Look, honestly, if you've got a vehicle and a phone, you're most of the way there. But a lot of this stuff that I bring, that I've learned over the years, that has been really handy for me. But I might not bring it every time. I might bring it every time, depending on the job. But it is a good idea to have this checklist so that you don't forget anything that's essential. So this is a checklist example. Again, just an example. It's not something that you're going to have every single time, but it is good to know what a checklist might look like. So I've got my laptop and charger. The reason I bring my laptop is to review footage quickly after I've taken it, or to, if nothing's going on, or if I'm in my motel room a little bit later on after the job, I can immediately start typing that report. You don't want to go out on a 5-day job and have to get home after it exhausted and start trying to remember everything that happened and try to organize a report. So I definitely like to have my laptop with me when I can. Dash cam, you might get jobs where they say, okay, this guy, his claim is he can't drive. Okay, so having the dash cam is a good hands-free way of proving that he did. Also, having the reflexes, let's say you're sitting there in a car for 8 hours, nothing's happening, your car's running, the dash cam's on, then the guy comes out, okay, and it's for 3 seconds. The dash cam will be able to possibly pick that up, whereas you fumbling around with your camera, trying to get it out in time and trying to get ready, won't get it. I've had situations where my dash cam has completely saved me from situations where I wouldn't have been able to get that 3 seconds of footage, which would have been crucial. 2 power banks. So power banks, these, not sure if you can see that, but I've got this one here. And that's going to help you out with keeping things charged. Even if you have to leave the car and get out on the move, you don't have that cigarette lighter, you can have those in a backpack at all times and keep going along with whatever you're doing. Nothing
Alex,
yep.
We've had a question. I'll just address it. Okay. The question is, suggestions for what to do if police are called on you by someone maybe living near or by the subject and notices you sitting in the car for a while. What to say, how to react. That's coming up in further slides in the future. Good that you're keen, people. This is great. Okay, but if you stick with us, we're going to have that in later slides after we've gone past these points. Okay, so good question. Alex will answer that.
Yeah, that's a funny one, and it's one that's changed over the years. Just quickly, police used to not know that private investigations was a real job. So you'd say it and they'd think you were taking the piss, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Your wallet, your wallet is going to have some important things in it, obviously, but most importantly, and we're going to go over this again in a later slide, but it's going to have your private investigator license and your driver's license. You've got to have it on you. If the police do attend, speaking of police, and you don't have it on you, you're going to run into some problems just trying to convince them that you're a private investigator. Phone and charger, obviously. There's jobs that go on for so long that if you bring your phone but forget your charger, you might as well have not brought your phone in the first place, because you're only going to have it for 10% of the job anyway. I've got a saying that if your phone battery lasts all day, it means you're ugly. It means you should really be using it for research. You should really be using it for footage and notes and all kinds of things like that. So having that charge is really important. If you forget, which I have a few times, and again, everything I'm telling you right now is because of the mistakes that I've made, you're going to 7-Eleven and you're buying the crappy $40 charger that you have to buy now because you've forgotten your one at home. Water bottle. multiple water bottles. Again, you don't want to be dehydrated for any reason. And I'm not talking about big bottles of Coke or anything that's going to make your day worse. Always bring water on every single job. You can't survive without it. Camera and charger, obviously. So you're going to have your various types of cameras and everything that you need to charge them. I take a little GoPro with me. There's some things that the GoPro might be useful for that a big handheld camera or even my phone aren't really good with. Spare clothes. This is a big one. So I need to be able to, in my car, change my identity quickly after a walk by or after I've been looked directly at. So, even something as simple as a hat or a different shirt or different shorts or shoes or something like that can really go a long way. The other thing is just for sanitary reasons, if you're sitting in the car for a long period of time and you're sweating and getting all gross, there's going to be a sickness or illness coming around the corner for you. So always bring some spare clothes. I have a whole bunch that I just leave in the car, and when I wear them, I just wash them afterwards. Pee bottle. You'll feel it when you forget this because you need to go to the toilet, but you've got no way of doing it. Okay. You will, funnily enough, this is one of the more important things on this list. It's one of the more funny things. I mean, it's not funny when it's happening to you, but it sucks and you feel it when you forget that. Notepad plus pens. Now, I've got all the technology in the world to make my notes with, and I'm big on using it. But sometimes the best way, especially if you've got time and you don't have to have your eyes constantly in one fixed position, is to get down and write all that stuff down. So it's easier then to look at and transfer over to a better method later on. Jumpstart kit. I wish I had one of these to show you, but what that is you can go to stores and it's a box and it's got 2 prongs that you can use to jumpstart your car when the battery goes flat. I've been saved by this thing so many times. That thing these days also will come with a charger, a little light for emergencies and all kinds of cool stuff. That jumpstarter kit, you can get them from $100 all the way up to $1,000, depending on how good of a one you want and how big the battery is going to be in it and that sort of thing. But that thing can save you. You want to make sure that's always in your car, and every now and then take it out of the car and charge it up, because the last thing you want is the thing not to work when you need it most. Food. Again, even if you're going out for a spot check, I'll stop at 7-Eleven on the way and buy myself a sandwich and have that with me, because you never know how long a job's going to go for. You never know how long you're going to be stuck in your car, and concentration can really go out the window if you're sitting there hungry and thirsty. Coffee. Obviously, fatigue is a factor. So if you're sitting there just about to fall asleep, if you're the sort of person that can fall asleep watching a movie, I'm not. I've got insomnia as it is, but you want to have something, a little bit of an upper sometimes, to help manage that fatigue. Body cameras. I've got a little camera that looks like a pen that I can put in my top pocket. Obviously, you can't always be pointing your phone at someone. You can't always be pointing your long distance camera at someone and holding it. Sometimes you're going to end up going somewhere with someone, you're stuck in an elevator with them, and there's just no way to get that footage that you need, or they go shopping, you can't follow them through all the lanes pointing any sort of a camera. So just having something a little bit more covert is just awesome. Again, this whole thing, just an example. You might have a totally different way of doing things, but it is good to know and have that example. Mobile surveillance. Okay, so this means basically going after someone in the car, which is one of the more exciting aspects of the job, to be honest, and also can be one of the more terrifying aspects. And it's also the time, sort of a fork in the road, where things could go great or things could go horribly wrong. So you definitely want to have a good idea of what you're doing while you're doing this. We've got a man there. That's a typical look of a private investigator who's about to lose someone, I think. Considerations. Don't follow too close. So you don't want to be too up someone's backside. I'm a guy, I hate people tailgating me. I'm constantly looking in them. I'm looking for people tailgating me. I can't stand it. And if you're going to be following me, it would not be a good idea to be following me too close, because it's something that I'm going to pick up on right away. Some people do that naturally, that they're following someone too close all day, every day, and they don't have an issue about it, and they don't mind people tailgating them. Don't take the risk, okay? If you're someone who normally, let's say if your wife's in the car and she's always telling you to back off, or husband, then just try to do that a little bit more naturally. Give the 2 or 3 second rule. Don't follow too far away. Seems like a good idea because you're giving them plenty of space and you're not going to get caught as easy. But then the next thing you know, they do 3 lane changes and take an exit and you missed it because you were stuck behind someone else. And now they're lights and corners in front of you and you have to go into recovery mode. Obey all road rules. So again, our license doesn't give us any special police powers. We're not allowed to do things like run red lights and speed, and you will lose your license for it. And if you lose your license, chances are you'll probably lose your job too, because a lot of this is done out of the car. Relax. This is probably one of the more important things. I actually will put on relaxing music while I'm doing a follow and do some breathing exercises while I'm doing a follow, because the stress of it and the panic of it, especially if you've been sitting around, nothing's been going on all day for 8 hours, and then all of a sudden 3 different cars leave in 3 different directions, you can start to freak out. And when you freak out, you make bad decisions. And when you make bad decisions, you make that left turn that you completely shouldn't have made. And now you're having to do a U-turn and try to recover. And then you're getting more stressed out, and things just start to snowball and get really, really interesting really quick. So do some breathing exercises, have some relaxing music ready to go, take some big deep breaths and just drive normal. Okay. It's not like if you lose the guy, it's the end of the world. You know, like I said, just try before you even get your license following someone for 10 minutes and you'll see how difficult it is. It's not going to make you look like a bad investigator if you lose them. And it doesn't mean you're the best investigator in the world if you do a really hard follow and you got lucky. You know, there's luck involved in this job for sure. Okay. Got a little example here, got a map, and make use of GPS maps. So, and don't follow into dead ends. So what we've got here is this road here. Now we can see that if we're following someone along this road and they make a left-hand turn, what is the point of following them into this? They can't get out. Don't follow them into that just straight away, at least. Okay, what I'm going to do, they turn left, I'm going to go whoosh past, and I'm going to park somewhere for a couple of seconds. I'm going to let them go in, let them park where they wanted to park. Then I'm going to later on, maybe a couple of minutes later, making sure they've settled in, go find out where they're at. Now, of course, sometimes they can go into a garage or something like that and you've lost them. But it's better than following people into dead-end streets most of the time, unless you're really desperate to find out and you suspect this is where they live, but you weren't sure what number. But again, you're risking burning your car and you might have to go and figure out a new one after you do something, a stunt like that. Really important. So keeping an eye on the GPS helps you know when that dead end is coming up, because you might not know the area. I've been doing this a long time, and there's areas that I don't know that are 10 minutes from me. So it's important not to burn yourself by doing something as silly as that when you don't need to. Also, if you're in this area, for example, and you know they live somewhere in there, you don't even have to necessarily go into the street and sit your car there all day. If your client isn't pressuring you to do that, you could wait at the outside of the street and follow them to go do whatever they do. It depends on what's going on. If they're in the front of their house, they're doing yard work and they're supposed to have a bad back, yeah, you might want to go in. But if they're saying, hey, we just want to see where this guy goes to when he leaves, you might want to wait completely outside the street and follow him when he leaves, him or her. Recognize counter surveillance. So that goes back to the previous slide that we talked about earlier. You want to know the signs of when someone is starting to get a bit suspicious, but at the same time, you don't want to be completely paranoid. What I like to do is I like to go over it a little bit with my case manager or my client and say, hey, this is what's happening. And they might say, right, back off. Or they might say, no, keep going. This is just the behavior they have normally, so don't worry about it. Being aware of fatigue. Again, if you're the sort of person that will fall asleep during a movie, a good movie, what makes you think you're not the sort of person who's going to fall asleep at the wheel? Okay, it's a hell of a lot more boring following someone for an hour than it is watching a good movie, in my opinion. Okay, so you want to be aware of the signs of fatigue and have that caffeine ready to go should you need it. Daytime versus nighttime. It's very different following someone at night than it is at day. I like it. I would prefer it because all they're going to see is a pair of headlights. Now, if you've got some crazy neon red whatever headlights going on or something like that, that's not a good thing. But if you've got headlights that look just like everyone else's and you're following them at night, I mean, you could have been 5 or 6 different cars, or you could have been one car that, you know, that's behind them. They're not really going to know as much about it. But again, that depends on your preferences and your headlights and how your car's sort of set up. But yeah, daytime and nighttime are a little bit different. Nighttime, you could probably get a little bit more aggressive because they can't see you as well. The only problem with that is you can't see them as well either. So there's another consideration. Vehicle position. Think about the street that you're in. Think about the vibe of the street, and imagine you lived there and you're on your way home and you get there and you see that car and you're just thinking, that car's not normally there. You notice, everyone notices a weird car in their street, okay? And where's an annoying place to park? Like I've got to park right out the front of my house, which is for visitors, and sometimes it's supposed to fit 3 cars and someone will just triple park across the whole thing because they don't know. I'm certainly going to notice that vehicle. Okay, so you want to park somewhere. You don't want to be parking somewhere in an annoying location. You don't want to be parking in a weird location. One thing that I like to do is if there's a construction site nearby, I've got a Nissan Navara. I throw a high-vis vest on the dashboard and I can sit there all day and no one's going to say a damn thing. But if I park, and put myself in front of an old people's home with my Nissan Navara rumbling around all day and try to, do that, it's going to be a huge problem. So the type of vehicle comes into it, and how you position it and why you're positioning it there can play a factor. If you've got a busy main road, yeah, you can do what you like because people are coming and going from there all day. If you're doing surveillance at the beach, you can park where you like because people are coming and going from there all day. No one's going to question why you're there. But you've got to consider these things with vehicle position. Next thing we want to talk about a little bit is communication. Okay, we can talk about communication with while you're out there with case managers or clients. I like to pester people with updates, and I tell them before the job, look, I'm going to tell you everything that's going on as if you're sitting in the seat next to me while it's going on. You don't have to write back to all of it unless you want to change the direction of what's going on. Okay. The other thing is communication with other agents. So this might be called a 2-up. If there's 2 of you on one job, 3-up, 3 of you on one job. These are quite common, and you're gonna have them, especially in your early days where they might desperately need an extra person. So yeah, jump on those jobs, but then you've got to communicate. Now the person might take off, and the best thing to do is just call your colleague, let them know they're taking off, and then you guys can swap positions every couple of minutes or so that you're not having one guy up the person's butt too much at one time, and you can rotate it around to give the person a bit of a break, which is great when that happens. But that comes through communication, through calling the person when you're about to leave or calling the person throughout the whole job if you want to. But yeah, it's something to consider while you're on mobile surveillance. The last thing you want is to have no communication with the other agents. Something goes wrong and you all lose them. But when the guy turned left and one of you missed it, the other guy can turn left and keep it going. So and let the other guy know where the other guy is. So communication is really important while you're on mobile surveillance if it's possible. Recognize patterns and habits. Some people do the same damn thing every day. It's crazy. Like they'll get up at the same time, they'll go to the same zarafas, they'll go to the same workplace, and they'll go home. It's beautiful when that happens. That's my favorite thing. You could start the job at the zarafas. You're so confident they're going to get to the zarafas first. Okay. So if you have any intel on what their patterns and habits are, it can make mobile surveillance a hell of a lot easier, because even if you completely lose the guy, you know he's going to go to that zarafas. You know he's going to go to, well, you don't know, but it's pretty likely, more likely anyway, and you can pick them up later. The hardest people to do surveillance on are people that just do things completely randomly, and that would be me. I don't have kids, so I don't have to make a school run. I get up at a different time every single day. I go to a different place every single day. It would be a pain in the butt to follow me around. But if you've got someone who's got patterns and habits, recognize it and know that if you lose them, you can go run spot checks on those places. Relocating a lost vehicle. First of all, it can be a bit of a scramble. You've lost them. Again, don't get emotional about it. But you want to think about, okay, what is this person like? Where are they likely to end up? What are the landmarks around me? Maybe they've gone food shopping. It's 4 p.m. on a Friday. They've got a whole bunch of kids and it's their, last free hour to go get something. Where's the nearest Woolies? Okay, let's go check all the Woolies car parks in the area. Where's all the Coles? We'll go check all that. Maybe the person regularly attends or looks like they regularly attend the local pub, so you want to go check that. Sometimes it can feel like a waste of time going around doing this, and then sometimes you just get super lucky and you see them in a car park at a bar doing something they shouldn't be doing, which is just great. But my recommendation would be set a time limit on how long you're willing to allocate this. And it can depend. If the client's written you a blank check, you could do it all day. But if it's a time-sensitive case, which 9 times out of 10 it will be, you might say, okay, I'm going to look for this guy for 20 minutes and then I'm going to give the client an update and see what they want to do. And they might say, hey, just go back and wait at the house. Or they might say, okay, mate, just we'll finish up the job for now and we'll try again tomorrow. It happens. Don't get emotional about it again. Tactical retreats / loss of contact. So this is something that can come up where you feel like you've pushed it a little bit too hard. Maybe they're starting to get a bit suspicious. They make that left-hand turn, you might just go woof straight past. Okay, this is something that can happen after a big day of surveillance, and you might want to do that just to preserve not being caught. You will be told in your instructions sometimes, hey, the number one thing with this job is don't get caught. I've had that come up a few times. Like, some people don't care. They're like, yeah, just stick the camera in their face and don't worry about it. But other jobs, you know, a lot of the time they want that privacy and they don't want to get caught and they don't want things coming back on them. So tactical retreats and purposeful loss of contact can come into play right there. And the dash cam, always have the dash cam running. It doesn't matter what you're doing, just always have it on that loop. Sometimes it'll have a week's worth of stuff there and then reset it. If you don't need it on, or you don't want it recording, or something really cool happens and you want to preserve it, you can just unplug it and it'll save that, and you can come back to that easily later on. But during mobile surveillance especially, I'll be having that dash cam plugged in so that anything that happens, including, let's say I lost him and my client wants to be a jerk about it, I can show them the dash cam footage of exactly how it happened and show them that, hey, I didn't just see an ice cream store and pull over into that instead. Okay, so something happened that's caused that loss of contact. I haven't actually had to do that before, but I've got it up my sleeve if I need it. Other essentials. Okay, so this is things that might be on the checklist that I might not have talked about already, but these are things that I feel personally that should be in every car. Things to keep on hand: various toiletries, so toilet paper, tissues, wipes, you know, sanitary wipes, things like that. These are things that you're going to want to have on hand. And again, if you need to blow your nose and you don't have anything to blow it on, it's going to end up on a sock or a shirt or something like that. You feel that. Okay, so keep this in your car at all times. Private investigator license, you've got to have it on you. When the cops rock up and you try to tell them you're a private investigator without a license, it's not going to fly. Okay, you've got to have it on you. Driver's license, got to have it on you. Okay, I go so far as to leave it in my car unless I'm going to get out and do surveillance on foot. So these are things to definitely keep on you at all times. Spare batteries, everything you've got, keep a spare battery for it and keep it all charged up. And you might even just keep it in the car just in case. Tripods, the next two things. So tripods and beanbags / heat pack for the same reason. It's actually quite difficult to sit in your car and get perfectly steady footage from a really far distance. You might think that you're going to be 20 meters from the subject at all times. That's not true. You might be 500 meters. You might be a kilometer from them. And when you're that far away from someone and you bump the camera, you're actually bumping it a millimeter, but it's 100 meters because of how far away it is. So a tripod is something that you can put the camera on to keep it steady. The beanbag / heat pack trick is one I like even more than a big heavy metal tripod sitting in my car, which makes everything look a bit dodgy. But a heat pack on the dash, you can put the camera there and sink it into it, and you can adjust one sort of bean at a time and make really precise adjustments to the camera position. And it's a really cool thing. Plus, once you're done with it, you can just chuck it on the floor. You don't have to fold it up or anything like that. Blue tack. This is, I could go on about blue tack for days. I love blue tack. I've got blue tack in my car all the time. It's annoying because sometimes it melts to my dashboard and things like that. But if you want to keep a camera still or stick something like the camera to the window as you do a drive-by, blue tack will help you out with that, or just keeping things organized in general. Maybe you've got 10 license plates to look out for, write them down on a piece of paper, blue tack it to the dashboard, and away you go. So blue tack is something that I would recommend. It's a funny thing when I tell people that I find it hard to keep a straight face and take it seriously, but I can't tell you how many times blue tack has made my day easier. First aid kit, you don't know what's going to happen. It's really important to keep something things like band-aids and things, even something as stupid as getting chafe while you're on the job is a huge pain. So having a first aid kit and having some way of getting yourself out of that discomfort can be a really good thing. There's other things like snake bites, which can go down in certain rural areas, and it'll just be really handy to have something like that in case you need it. Fire extinguisher. Cars catch fire sometimes. You're sitting there on a 10-hour job on a hot day, underneath some, with some dry grass underneath you. It can be a really good thing to have that fire extinguisher. And I've always had one, and it's just the peace of mind that it gives me. It helps me get through the day a little bit. Sunscreen. It seems silly again. I know I'm talking to a lot of people in Melbourne, and yeah, you guys have a little bit less problems than we might in Queensland some days. But again, the day you forget it will be the day it happens to you, and you'll feel it. And it's going to look a little bit weird being completely red and trying to follow someone around the shopping centre the next day as well. Bug spray is another one. I mean, every afternoon in Queensland, around 5 to 6 p.m., I just get mauled. And I'm sitting there with my window open because I'm trying to stay cool. And then I've got to close my window, and now I'm overheating. And then I've got to turn the car on and put the air conditioning on because of that, and that's all because I might not have bug spray. But it's a huge thing. Window cleaning products. There's nothing more annoying than when you see the guy for the first time, you go to film out your window and you've got a big smudge right where you wanted to put that footage, and now you've just accidentally blurred the target or subject out. So every day when I get to, before I leave, I'll walk around my car and just give the windows a quick wipe down with some window wipes or some window cleaning products or some, something like that, some sort of spray. Again, that'll catch you out, and it's not very professional to have a big clump of whatever on your window when you're trying to, film. A car jack. It'll be really funny if you remembered your spare tire but forgot your car jack. You might as well have not have remembered the spare tire. So car jack is definitely something that I would consider essential to keep in your car at all times. There's no need to get it outside of the car. Just leave it in there until you need it. Binoculars. I've never owned a pair, but sometimes there are days that I wish that I did have them. Definitely the last thing you want to do is get caught with a pair of binoculars up to your eyes looking at someone, but they can be really useful, especially in rural sort of jobs where there's no one around, and you can have a good look around, really close, clear look, and then bust out the camera if you need to. Painkillers, Imodium, etc. You'll feel this when you forget it, but you get headaches on the job, you get diarrhea on the job. It's a huge problem. So you want to have a few different little things that you can rely on and have there on hand, so you don't have to run to a 7-Eleven and spray the toilet a different color. Cash. I know it's there's a lot less of it around, but you are going to go to some areas where they're going to say, oh, sorry, we have cash only, or, you're going to have times where you do need cash. I do a lot of test purchases where we go and buy something covertly, and for whatever reason, they weren't supposed to be selling it. That's always cash. These people are doing something illegal. They're always going to deal in cash. So cash is something that you want to keep on you. Criminals don't necessarily always take credit cards. And if they did, the last thing you want is to give them a credit card with your actual name on it that they can use to track you down with later on. So I'll try to use cash whenever I can. Okay, some specific stuff towards being in the field right now. What we've got here is Universal Street. This is where I live. Considerations, entrances and exits. So you want to pretty much before you get there, I would suggest doing it before you get there, so you know how the client how the subject is going to be able to get in and out of everything that he's going to get into, so that you have an idea and zoom out a little bit and decide, okay, which direction is he more likely to leave in? We're talking about likely versus unlikely. Okay, we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute, but there's no 100% sure he's going to go this way or that way. Every time I've thought that, I've been completely wrong. Vehicle position, so where it is, what direction you're going to face to try to win that likely versus unlikely battle. Vehicle direction, so if I'm on Universal Street here, I want to point my vehicle direction in the direction that I think he's more likely to go. So if he goes west, it's not very likely that they're going to do that compared to east, unless he's wearing a cowboy hat, because that's the direction that he's heading, is out to that rural country area heading west. Okay. But if he's going east, which is possibly more likely unless he's wearing a cowboy hat, then I want to point my vehicle in that same direction so that I don't have to do a ridiculous U-turn. And in a Nissan Navara on my street, a U-turn is it's a 3-point turn every time. So I'm not going to be able to do that very easily unless I want to switch to a Hyundai Getz, which I don't. Visibility into and out of windows. So you get to the job, what I want you to do is step out of your car and take a few steps back and look at your window from where you're sitting and just take note of what that looks like. Because even if you've got tinted windows and the sun hits you a particular way, you just get lit up like a Christmas tree, and it's not good. Okay. So I like to know that, and also understand that throughout the course of a 4-hour day or 6-hour day, 8-hour day, that can change. So you get there in the morning, you might have been completely invisible, but by 4 p.m., you're being lit up by the sun. So just have an awareness of what you look like sitting in your car. Neighborhood vibe. Okay, so I can tell straight away whether a neighborhood is nosy or not. I can tell whether it's quiet. I can tell whether or not it's going to be a good sit or a bad sit just based on when I get there. You can sort of see the curtains flickering and people know you're there before you're even there sometimes. So this is my neighborhood right now. This is a neighborhood that is not a good sit. This is a terrible, terrible street to be doing surveillance on. Look, there's no parking whatsoever on the side. You can understand how weird a car would look right there. There has been a few cars there, but they've been on their roof because they've flipped into there and crashed. Okay, so there's some visitor car parking here, but usually they're used by the residents. So parking there just stands out and looks weird. If someone goes the wrong direction, you've got to do a U-turn across this road here. There's people coming down this hill like it's a racetrack. It's not a good sit, not a good vibe. I wouldn't call it a nosy neighborhood. If you're here, it's very unlikely that someone's going to come out and confront you about it. But it's something to consider. You would look strange being there for too long. Likely versus unlikely. So again, there's no he's gonna do this, he's gonna do that. They're gonna go this direction, they're gonna go that direction. She's gonna go to the mall and go shopping. There's no 100%. All you have in surveillance and all you have in the field is likely versus unlikely. Okay, so if it's you've got a main road and it's pointed to one end's pointed towards a city and one end's pointed towards the country, and this person is not a cowboy, it's more likely when they leave, they're going to go towards that city. Okay, so you've got more likely than not. And then, half the time they go the opposite direction, you've got to do that U-turn. But we're going to try to always put ourselves into the likely category. It's something to think about before every single job. Agent health. So what I mean by that is you're sitting in your car for long periods of time, you're going to get a bad back, you're going to get stiff joints, all kinds of things. So what I want people to try to do is about every hour for 10 minutes, get out of the car and have a stretch. If that's not possible, you can do some stretches within the car. I like to bring bands and little things to help me, do some little stretches and movement and a little bit of resistance training just to not be sitting in my car for too long. I know surveillance guys who've had heart attacks at very young ages because all they do is sit down, drink Monster energy drinks, and then, get home and do nothing and do it all again the next day. Or like I was doing for a long time, I would sit in my car for 12 hours and try to go to the gym with pre-workout and do deadlifts. So I was doing completely nothing and then going to the other extreme. And it was just, it's not a good thing for my health. So try to move around as much as you can. And I know that can be tough, but it is going to be a lot better on your lower back. Trust me. Compromise. So it's important to know what to do when you're compromised. Pretty much, usually that would mean the job is over. It's very rare that I've ever been busted and the client has told me to stay. It happened once, but it's not a good thing. Self-defense situations. As I said earlier, my favorite form of self-defense is having more petrol than they do so I can just get away. But if you are worried about that sort of thing, I would suggest taking some self-defense classes or getting yourself into a situation where you're a little bit more prepared for that, whatever that may mean. But I've been doing this since 2008 and I haven't had to fight anyone. A couple of people have tried, but I've just been able to drive away, luckily, so far. But it is a consideration to have in the field, and you just want to basically have some awareness and put yourself in a position where you can get out of these situations. And if you're really worried about it, I would go and take some self-defense classes of some description. Try to find a reputable person, because there's a lot of BS out there, obviously, with certain martial arts, I'll say. Considerations of communication with other agents and clients. Again, I like to make my client feel like they're sitting in the seat next to me the whole job. So if something happens, they know about it immediately. Other agents, you want to be able to talk to them, let them know what's going on, rotate around if necessary. It's all part of the communication, and it's much better to talk too much than to talk too little. The last thing I want is a client messaging me and asking me what's going on. It doesn't happen with me, okay? They know what's going on. And even if there's no news, it's a good idea to message them and say, hey, there's no news, because that's better than just that. They're probably sitting by their phone, just, hitting refresh, trying to find out what's going on. If nothing's going on, every hour you're messaging them saying, sorry, nothing's going on at the moment. You don't have to say sorry, but yeah, just communication. Police attending. So this happens, and it's a little bit different to how it happened in the past. When I started in 2008, they used to pull up behind me, their lights were flashing, and I would show them my license, and they would tell me that I made a fake license just to go and do some dodgy stuff. Obviously it wasn't the case, but nowadays they're a little bit better about it. They don't have the lights flashing so much, but they still will occasionally attend because they've been called, hey, there's a dodgy guy in a dodgy car in the street. Can you guys come out and check on this guy? And it's never a good thing that they show up. I don't like it. But what you can do is, if you get the vibe that the neighborhood's nosy, or even for any reason, you feel like maybe you should ring up, what you do is you call ahead, beat that nosy neighbor to the punch, and call before she can or he can. So I'll get to a job and I'll call up the police. And I'll say, hi, my name's Alex, licensed private investigator with my license number. I'm sitting in a black Nissan Navara, 123 Alpha Bravo Charlie, and I'm going to be here for the next 6 days. And they'll say, yep, no worries. If we get a call, we'll just say we're aware of it and it's not a problem. Okay. The police also now have my registration on file pretty much permanently, and there has been times when they've called me and say, hey, you in this area? And I'll say yes, and they'll say, are you working? And I'll say yes, and they'll say no problem and hang up, and it's all good. That wasn't always the case, and I wouldn't rely on that, so I still call ahead. Other reasons I might call ahead is just for the pure fact that I might be too close to a school or a daycare center or something like that, or a playground. You want to be able to call them first before someone else does, and fair enough that people would call the police. Small town considerations. So everyone knows everyone in some of these small towns, even the police. So you want to be careful with what details you give out and what excuse you've got for being there. One time I gave out the excuse that I was a repossessions agent, and they said, oh yeah, which car? And I just thought, oh shit, it'll be someone's cousin for sure. So you have to consider these things in these small town areas, and know that everyone knows everyone, and know that news can travel really quick.
Just on that point, Alex, especially if you're in a country town where there's a series of small country towns, there might only be one police station in service at any one time, while the other one's on annual leave and another one's gone to a conference. So one poor lady police officer might be covering 3 police districts. If you don't ring up and tell the police radio communications room that you're there, and she has to drive 150 kilometres to find out you're a licensed PI, and then 150 kilometres back. She could have been doing paperwork or eating donuts or something like that. She had to drive that 300 kilometres to find that out. They get pretty dirty on that. So if you let them know that you're there, that solves 98% of your issues, because if they just pull up randomly behind you and lights flashing and draw all this attention to you and come up to the car and tell you to stay in the car and ask you what you're doing, and you show them the license, they start questioning you. You don't want to be answering a whole lot of tricky questions. So let them know you're there. Now, even when you let them know they're there, sometimes they will still come around. So it's not always you win, but 90% of your problems will be solved by doing that. And most police are pretty good. They don't want to create a whole mess in their local patch. You've got to put yourself in their position. When the drug squad go into a country town, or the armed robbery squad go into a country town, or the, I don't know, some other squad goes into it, they don't tell the local cops they're there. They don't, because of what Alex just said. They know everybody else. So the poor old copper is, just constantly blasted with these operations that they don't know about till afterwards, and the kerfuffle, and then they're dealing with neighbourhood watch, and this, that, and the other, and explaining all this. It's a real mess for the poor old meat in the sandwich copper. Let them know you're there, and that's going to be solving most of the problems. The only time you don't is if your instructions say don't. Right? If your employer says your clients don't tell them, then don't. That's fine. Other than that, let them know. It'll save you a lot of angst. I have been caught by the subject I've been doing surveillance on documented over 300 occasions. I have never been in so much as a push, yell, grab, roll around on the floor situation as a licensed private investigator. As a TAFE teacher, working in the TAFE system, I've had 26 full-on fights, which I reckon 4 of them were life-dependent. That's as a TAFE teacher. Private investigator is a very safe job if you're intelligent about it. If you do this and you draw a lot of attention to yourself, and I want you to think about this because Alex has explained it, be very casual how you drive. Don't draw it. You might have the best undercover car in the world, but if you go like this, and your movements are quick and loud and draw attention to yourself, you're your own worst enemy. So think of it as, like Alex said, play relaxing music. Don't have AC/DC playing when you're following someone. Have that playing when you go home, right? When you're on the actual job, have a little bit of Tchaikovsky and just chill out a little bit. So police, they don't want to come and arrest you. But if I'm parked at my age near a school, it's pretty creepy, right? So I've got to let those cops know that I'm going to be there. If I'm parked outside the bowls club, no one's going to give us stuff. That's fine. I can do that at my age, but I can't park near a little kid's swimming pool or whatever. Now, what I want you to keep in mind too, with everything that Alex has gone through, and he's still got a little bit to go, is there isn't a script for this. There is not like the movies where you know that the bad guy's going to go over here or the good guy's going to do that, and you can see it coming a mile off. It's an empty sheet of paper when you get these jobs. They could go anywhere. They could drive from Melbourne to Adelaide the day you're supposed to follow them. We had 2 young students only 2 years ago, their first job. They ended up following someone from the Gold Coast to Toowoomba on their very first day, which was a pretty good follow, right, for a couple of beginners. So you don't know what's going to happen, but remain calm and communicate where necessary and keep your client informed. Back to you, Alex.
Do we have any questions?
No, mainly that police one was the big one, where what you say when the police come along. But given that you've told them, that's the police. Now, if someone comes up and asks me what I'm doing, what are you doing, you cranky old fart? You've been parked there for 5 days. Well, I'm going to say, well, my missus and I just broke up, mate. I've got nowhere to go. I'm just here having a thinking about my future. Will you piss off and leave me alone? And
don't do that.
So
if you tell a bikie to piss off and leave you alone, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I'm very careful about who I say what to, but I also know if I've got to be there for another 4 days, I've got to go, mate, I'm buying the house down the road. I'm just counting cars, see what the traffic's like. Okay. I'm going to buy that business down there. I just want to know that 200 people a day go in and out of that business, that service station.
My advice for what to say to the police is you don't lie to them.
No.
Okay. That'll piss them off, but you don't have to tell them everything. Okay, so don't say, oh, I'm just, looking at birds when you're there being a private investigator. Tell them you're a private investigator, but you don't have to tell them what house you're looking at, who you're looking at, especially in a small country town. Okay, so don't lie to them, but don't tell them everything.
Yeah. And police, once you find that you're cooperative with them, you build a rapport. They don't want trouble in their town.
Hmm.
I've had cops in country towns say, "Oh, mate, I think I've got a good idea who you're looking at." Now, we've actually charged that guy with kidnapping on 2 occasions and taken guns from him, and we suspect there might be more there, right? And I'd be very, very cautious if I was you. Sometimes they'll get really chatty and really friendly.
Hmm.
And nothing wrong with that. There's no absolutely, they're not giving up, but they're trying to keep the peace in the town they've got to live in. And, their kids go to school there. They're in Apex there. They're in, Rotary. They're in the cricket club. They're, umpire for the footy. So, they don't want trouble. And you could be cooperative and helpful, polite. Don't be a dickhead. I've seen people be dickheads and it's cost them big time. Being just smart. But if you're respectful and polite, they'll respect you. And, I often have a business card and I'll give them a copy of my business card. They like that because the big thing with them is they have no idea that private investigators exist until they come across you.
Yeah,
they don't. Now, sometimes in the city, they might, give a statement for a workers' compensation claim as witness or something like that. But they're so busy with domestic violence, with parking and speeding and writing parking tickets and speeding tickets to keep up, their quota for the month, whatever. They don't have time to think about what a private investigator. They don't. And they don't know, generally, until later on when they think about transitioning into a new career after retirement or whatever. Just check for another question. No, I haven't got any other questions, mate. No, there's no other questions there.
I see something. Suggestions for what to do if police are called on you by someone maybe living near the subject. Okay, so that we've covered that. That's good.
Yeah.
All right, I'll continue on then.
Yep.
Okay, small town considerations, and just as importantly, big city considerations. I'd prefer to work in the city personally. I'm not much of a country boy, even though I was born in Tasmania. I left there when I was 10. So I feel pretty comfortable being in the big city, but you've got to have certain considerations, like if you step out of your car for more than 10 seconds, you're getting a parking ticket and it'll get towed. I've got a question here. Question, do you research a target? What does that question say? It's disappeared on me. I can't hear you. You're on mute.
It's a person that was under surveillance that's asked a question about mental health.
Right.
So disregard that. Look, we have a lot of people that do our course because they got mental health claims with their old workplace and they just want to learn about being a private investigator. Nothing wrong with that. That's fine.
Cool.
Private investigators have mental health issues as well. No one's here to make life harder for anyone. In fact, as a surveillance operative with people who've had mental health claims, particularly with some of your serious stuff where they can't go outside their house, that sort of thing. They've got agoraphobia, that sort of thing. I pride myself on the fact that I saw those people get their compensation for their claim. So it's not about denying claims or anything like that. We're there to do our job, and that's our role. Keep going, Alex. Yep.
Yeah, 100%. I'm not there to have an opinion or say this is happening or this isn't happening. All we do is just sort of gather facts and put that into a report. And sometimes it goes one way, sometimes it goes the other. Okay, so again, going back to big city considerations, you do have to have some considerations for big cities. You don't want to be rolling around the big city with a cowboy hat. You don't want to have a muddy vehicle. You want to watch that you don't step out of your vehicle for too long in a zone that you shouldn't be parked in. It can get quite complicated. I've had jobs where I've been in Brisbane City, and I haven't even had to bring my car. In fact, it would have been a bad idea to bring my car, so I've caught a train up and followed them around doing what they were doing, and then they caught the train home, and I was able to follow them that way. So it's certainly a lot different, and there's some consideration to have. You want to have your whatever city you're living in, there's going to be some sort of a transport card that you've got for that city. You want to have that full and ready to go, and little things like this. You want to have a backpack with a reasonable amount of gear. Obviously, if you try to bring everything that I've talked about today into a backpack, you're going to have a pretty big backpack. So, a couple of power banks, some chargers for your phone, and water and essentials like that. Surrounding area considerations, for example, nearby schools. So if I'm anywhere near a school, especially a primary school, I'm on the phone to the cops straight away to let them know that I'm in the area, because these are the sort of areas that are going to be a lot more aware of weird middle-aged older men sitting in cars in their area. Obviously, it's a little bit easier if you're a little bit younger. I started this job when I was 18 and never had a problem with that, but I'm starting to get problems with that now. Hiding equipment / notes when a person approaches. So I mentioned earlier that I'll blue tack some information to my steering wheel when when I need to remember something. That gets ripped off pretty quickly the moment anyone comes anywhere near my car. And when I have to leave my car in a hurry, I make sure that everything's put away or turned on its head so that it can't be seen from the window, because someone might have been looking at me wondering what I'm doing. I'm getting out of the car to go for a walk for whatever reason. I'm going to make sure that nothing sensitive is sitting there face up, ready to be seen by someone. It's not a good thing. Conversely, the subject walks away from their vehicle, I might be able to look into their window and see that they've got a letter with an address on it, that might be crucial to the case, and be able to take a photo of that. So it's something to consider, but you want to keep everything sensitive, hidden, put in the glove box, turned upside down, covered with a blanket, whatever you've got to do. Gated communities. This is something to have a think about. You can't be tailgating people into gated communities with, the swinging gates and boom gates and security and all that sort of thing. If you go in to do that and you obtain evidence and it goes to court, you've got yourself illegally obtained evidence because you were trespassing to get it, and we don't want to be doing that. This is something that you will usually be doing in the vehicle. That's why it's, related to this part of the course. But, they sometimes have what looks like a gated community and it doesn't have a gate at all, and the public can just roll in and use the local barbecue and park and all that sort of thing. That's fine. But if it's sitting there with a gate and you're tailgating someone through the gate to try to get some intel, it's not going to fly. If you can see over the fence a little bit, like the fence is like 1 meter high and it's made of like what they put around the outside of pools, and you can see everything going on, that's great. But often that's not the case, and you don't want to be trespassing and breaking the law to try to get a result. I know the client will pressure you to do that sometimes, but it's not a way to keep your license for the long term. Agent behavior. So this kind of relates to how you carry yourself when you're out on the job, sitting in your car and that sort of thing. I've got some major pet peeves that relate to this. So considerations: dress for the occasion and location. Again, it comes back to not wearing a cowboy hat in the city, not having a business suit in the middle of Bow Desert, out there in rural areas. You don't want to be standing out. You want to sort of dress for the occasion and not be cheesy about it. If I am going to a rural area, I'm not going to have the spurs and the boots and everything like that for the first time in my life. Just try to be a little bit more like everyone else is in the area. Sunglasses is a major pet peeve of mine when someone sits there on surveillance and they've got sunglasses on. The reason this is a problem, like you've got the guy here in the photograph, a lot of people wouldn't see that as a problem, but when you're looking through the windscreen at someone, there's something about the sunglasses that just pops off the face and makes the person stand out a hell of a lot more than what they should. It also makes you look like you're doing exactly what the hell you're doing, which is not a good thing. You look like the Men in Black sitting there with your dark sunglasses on in the car. So take them off, and just try to blend in a little bit better than that. So walk-bys is something that you might be getting out of your vehicle and doing a walk-by instead of just driving by all the time. So let's say I'm supposed to do a pass-by of the person's house every half an hour. I might mix that up. I might go, okay, drive-by, walk-by, drive-by, walk-by. But you don't want to be walking by and acting dodgy. You don't want to be walking by and sort of like really eyeballing what's going on. One trick I use is I just put my phone down by my hip and walk by and film it, and I don't even look. Okay, it's something that you've got to be aware of, because in certain neighborhoods that could be taken as someone looking to break into someone else's house, which is not good. Loud music and speakerphone. I've always got my phone on speaker, for contact and calls between myself and the client, but I turn the volume right down, because the last thing I want is people in the neighborhood hearing what I'm talking about, what's going on. And loud music, it really should be common sense, but sometimes common sense isn't so common. So you want to turn down the AC/DC just a little bit when you're out on the job there. Camera position. So this relates to where you're going to set your camera up in your car. There are some places which are a little bit smarter than others, and some ways of doing it which are a little bit smarter than others. Filming out the back window is usually a pretty safe bet. Filming straight through the front window while it's facing the person is usually a pretty unsafe bet. So we just want to use common sense there and find ways to conceal the camera or make it less likely that the person's going to notice that a camera is being pointed at them. One of my favorites is to lay my front seat completely down and film out the side back window, just in the corner of the window. The other thing you can do is, if there's any silver parts or parts that stand out on the camera, you can get a permanent marker and color that in black so that it stands out a little bit less. Little things like this add up, and they do help you get busted a lot less.
A little bit of black tape over the top of that silver or light on your camera will work just as effectively. Never ever film through the rear vision mirrors on your vehicle, because that will reverse the hand or the foot or the knee of the subject, what they're doing. So if they've got a left hand injury and they're using a screwdriver for 3 hours on a project at a construction site, and you film that, and that's all filmed through that mirror because you were too scared to do it properly and lay your seat down and angle the camera professionally, then you'd probably face losing your job over that if you claimed that that was their injured hand they were using. And that has happened. Got a question about private investigators and mental health matters. Are we accountable for the subject's mental health during our surveillance activities? Good question. In Melbourne, a couple of years ago, a person, licensed private investigator, and full credit to him, he'd done his suicide assist program. He was watching the subject. He saw the subject tie a rope, actually tied a noose. He saw the subject walk into his garage. He saw the subject throw the noose up over a rafter in his garage. He very quickly cottoned on to what was going on, called the police, they intervened, and that private investigator saved that person's life. And that was a mental health claim. So nobody's going to say to me that we make it worse for people. We don't. There's no proof of that. Sometimes, and we don't get any credit for it, we make it better for people. Keep going, Alex. Sorry.
I have a little bit of a saying sort of relating to that, I always joke with my friends. They say, "Oh, you're a private investigator. You're not following me, are you?" And I say, look, if you can see me, it's probably got nothing to do with you. It's very rare that I'm in someone's face or, standing anywhere near someone. So hopefully that should help reduce some of the possible harm that could come to someone from my job. But yeah, if you can see me, I'm probably 400 meters away, realistically. Considerations such as sensitive areas like playgrounds. Again, it used to not be as bad of a problem as it is now, but it's becoming more of a problem for me. So it's something to think about. Playgrounds, schools, daycares, that sort of thing. Self-awareness. I'm not an idiot. I know that I'm a bigger human being than most people, and I know that's fine when I'm around a construction site. And I know that's not so fine when I'm following someone down a dark alley. Okay. There are certain things that men will be able to do a little bit easier than women. And there are a hell of a lot of things as well that women will be able to do a little bit easier than men. I don't know how many people are going to be bothered that a woman is hanging by a daycare center, but it's going to be a hell of a lot less than, me or Mike. So you've got to have a level of self-awareness of how you look like. And a lot of people want to tout that, everyone should just be able to do, whatever they want. A woman should be able to walk into a construction site. I agree with you. And in a perfect world, that's exactly how it would be. But when you're a woman and you're walking past a construction site, understand this. You might be the first woman that those guys have seen in days, okay? They're going to notice you, Okay. And you're not going to just be able to hang around and bust out a camera and start filming them as easily as a man would. Okay. Same thing if we go into the women's underwear section of Kmart. I'm not following a woman in there without being noticed. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to be able to stand there and look at women's underwear and pretend to shop next to her without being noticed. It's, it's just one of those things. So you've got to look in the mirror, say, okay, maybe I shouldn't be hanging around a playground, and go on with your job in that way. Okay. There is other times where you might say, geez, this particular job, I don't know if it's a good idea for a man to be doing it. You might go get a female operative to do it instead, and vice versa. So it's something to be aware of. Again, self-awareness as far as locations, like construction sites. So you've got to be able to say, okay, I'm a bit of a flamboyant male. This job might not be for me because I've got to be pretending that I'm a concreter for a day or something like that. It's not going to be as easy for you as you think it would be. Considerations might be the subject's level of awareness. This is something that I'll ask the client before every single job. What's the subject's level of awareness? Have they been followed before? Do they have AVOs against them, or do they have AVOs on someone else? Are they aware that this job even exists? A lot of people aren't. So that's good. That's great. We should try to keep it that way a little bit. But some people are completely aware. Some people may have even been in the industry. So
you got a comment, Alex?
Oh, yep. Nice jumper. Thanks, mate.
I don't know who that looks like a false name. He sounds like some kind of
I know exactly who that is.
Dodgy person, that one does. So we'll get rid of that comment.
I know exactly who that is, and we'll be catching up for a beer later on, I'm sure.
All right. I'm sure you don't want him banned for life.
No, that's all right. Okay. The other thing would be communicating concerns to your client. So if I have a concern, I don't bite my tongue and not say it, because if the concern turns into something that becomes a problem later on, it's less impactful because you considered it beforehand. So let's say there's two exits to the street, and the person might take either one of them. I'll say to the client, there's two exits to the street. I'm going to sit over on this more likely exit because it faces a main road. But if he goes the other way, I'm screwed. Okay. And I'll say that. And then when he goes the other way and I get screwed, I said something about it at least, rather than it being a shock. And then he can't come back and say, well, why didn't you just go to the other one? Because we worked that out together. So it's never completely my fault in a way. I like to make it more our fault, and I like to work together with my clients closely on things, because then we can work out what the best solution is. And hey, the client might say, no, this guy, he's a local, he knows these streets really well, he's going to take the back streets, he's not going to go to the main road because he knows there's less lights and it's faster. So these are things you've got to be able to communicate your concerns and work together. I never feel like I'm working for people as much as I feel like I'm working with them. And even if someone's working for me, I try to work as closely with them and not have them work for me as I can, so that we can come up with solutions. Two heads are better than one. Jewelry and watches is sort of similar concept to what the sunglasses is. When you're holding a camera up that's completely blacked out, that's all well and good. When you've got a big silver watch on, it just shines and stands out and can really not be helpful in keeping you hidden. Changing appearance / vehicles. Let's say you've done a walk by in one shirt and one pair of shorts. You might want to go again, like later on, with a pair of pants and a jumper or something like that. It can be really important, especially for a guy like me who stands out anyway. Anything I can do to make myself stand out a little less, it's going to be a good thing. Changing the appearance of your vehicle. I mean, you can change the vehicle completely if you need to. You can also just do little things like put some sunshades up, or the sunshade up at the front, or do something to make the vehicle look different. I've heard guys talk about I'll drive around with my windows down all day, and then towards the afternoon I'll put them up later on, and that can help change the vehicle's appearance just a little bit. All these little things add up, and they do help. One consideration would be being seen in multiple locations. So if you started the job at X and you end up over at Z, you might want to be a little bit more aware while you're over at Z about being seen again, because some people have excellent memories. I don't, but some people do, and they're going to go, wait a minute, I saw that guy over here and now he's over here. And it has happened to me, and that has been how the ship has been sunk with me a few times, especially, you know, being a human being that stands out a little bit. So you've got to be able to know, okay, I was at X and now I'm at Z. I'm going to be a little bit more careful while I'm over here at Z because it's a little bit weird that I'm in both of these locations. Final thoughts. Got our final thought from Jerry Springer there. Make sure the vehicle is in good working order and doesn't stand out. Do not break the law on or off the road to get a result. Consider the climate and location and adjust resources as needed. So if it's hot, you know, you don't want to be wearing 10 layers of jumpers. If it's cold, you don't want to be there with your thongs and singlet. Put together a pre-operational checklist. You could do this right now. You could just say, okay, what do I think I'm going to need? Just like you're packing to go away on a holiday, think about what you would need, and you sort of put it in the suitcase and make a checklist for that. I do that because I've got a bad memory and I'm likely to forget things. So put together one of those as soon as you can, just for fun, and think about what you put in there. And you can have it on your phone. If you just write it and then start crossing it out, you've got to make a new one every time. I have it on my phone, so I just can go through that and put little ticks next to it. Be ready for mobile surveillance. So that means you've got petrol, you're ready to go, you're focused, you're caffeinated if necessary, all that good stuff. Have a level of self-awareness. So if you are a big, ugly man, know that hanging around a playground is not going to be a great idea. If you are an attractive woman, don't get out of the car too often around those construction sites. Be aware of geographical locations, entries, exits, and overall vibe. So where you're going to park your car, how you're going to park your car, how you're going to get in, how you're going to get out, how the subject can get in and out, and is the neighborhood somewhat of a nosy neighborhood, or is it more likely that they're just going to leave you alone? Do not behave or dress in a way that makes you stand out. That's kind of, seems like common sense, but common sense isn't so common. So really try to blend in with the area that you are in without overdoing it. But yeah, just try to mix in as best you can. And finally, get home safely. The job really isn't over until you're at home and you're safe. So if something goes wrong and you're being chased, you know, really have a level of awareness of who's following you and what's going on, so that you can make sure that you do get home safely and no one figures out where you live. And that's it.
Okay, that's great, Alexander. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. That's 2 down. So we've got our report writing and we've got our surveillance vehicle. Next week, it'll be a closed, students only conduct surveillance program back with Alex. Just another thought for those of you that are going to invest in surveillance vehicles. I just want to show you a video here somewhere. I bought 2 of these in May, 28th of May last year. They promised they'd be delivered on the 1st of September this year. I'm not going to be able to pick them up until late January in 2022. So I will have waited almost 10 months to get a new vehicle. Now, I bought 2 of them particularly for the purpose of doing surveillance, one in one state and one in another state. Now, when I bought them intending to use the one in the other state, there was no ban on working in other states at that time. So basically, things have changed a lot in that period of time. So I've bought 2 new cars. I haven't got them, okay? I'm still waiting for them, and that's a consideration that you might have to speak to your accountant about if you're looking to upgrade your surveillance vehicle in the pandemic times in which this presentation was made. Safety is paramount, absolutely paramount. Thinking about it before you go out there, planning it before you leave, preparing your checklists like Alex explained. He does that automatically. Interestingly, that's in the course as a requirement. Everything you've seen today, yes, it's from Alex's experience, but yes, it's also in the course. And your assessments at the Australian Security Academy relate exactly to what you've just seen here. And Alex's guidance and information can help you answer the 3 assessments, which you will receive feedback from Pat, myself, and the other instructors as well. So thanks for coming in today, Alex. We'll see you next week. Have a good weekend.
Thank you very much. Bye, everybody.
Okay. Thanks for watching, people.